Just let me know when you're ready. Okay. We'll open this meeting of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners informal and formal session for May 14th of 2020. Commissioner Starrett, can you lead us in the flag salute?
Yes, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to item C, which is public comment. And due to COVID-19 and social distancing requirements, we encourage anyone wishing to submit general public comment or comments on agenda items to do so in written format via email at bocinfo@co.yamhill.or.us or by mail at 535 Northeast 5th Street, McMinnville, Oregon 97128. Any comments received prior to the meeting will be shared with the Board of Commissioners and submitted to the record. And we have no general public comment today. Move on to item D, which is our consent agenda, and we have none today. We move on to item E, which is old business, and we have none today. Move on to item F, which is other business. And item F1 is consideration of accepting a quote from Webster Heating for the replacement of 2 HVAC units on the county server room in the amount of $36,975. And Commissioners, or Ken, do you have?
The HVAC.
Yeah.
Went out on the server room. We currently have some solutions, some temporary solutions that are helping to control that, but this work is an emergency.
It is critical to have the correct cooling in our IT room. So I'd make if there's no other question, I'd make a motion that we accept a quote from Webster Heating for the replacement of 2 HVAC units in the county server room in the amount of $36,975.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F1. Item F2 is consideration of an amendment to the 2019-2020 capital improvement project, which is Board Order 19-258, to increase the amount available to include the county server room HVAC replacement project, which was item 1.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of item E2.
Perfect. F2,
I'm
yes.
sorry, F2.
Yeah, I knew what you meant, but all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F2. Item F3 is consideration of approval of the annual maintenance and support from Harris Enterprise and Resource Planning for the GEMS program in the amount of $47,775.57. And Ken, do you have any thoughts for us or comments?
This is the maintenance and for our finance system.
And I think too, as long as we're on that old system, that every year we'll get this amount, hopefully under a new system between the warranty and the maintenance, it'll be a lot less. But being a lot of this is written in COBOL, can anybody spell COBOL? It definitely is a lot to maintain. So I'll make a motion that we approve the annual maintenance support for from Harris Enterprise and Resource Planning for the GEMS program in the amount of $47,775.57.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F3. Item F4 is consideration of approval of a grant agreement between Yamhill County and the State of Oregon Office of Emergency Management, or otherwise known as OEM, to receive federal disaster relief funding for public assistance for FEMA. I'm guessing number 4499-DR-OR COVID-19. And Commissioner Starrett, as liaison, do you have anything you would like to add? I mean, I think the explanation was great, but.
I would just move approval.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The record showing unanimous approval of item F4. We have one add-on, which would be item F5. And that is from Abhishek Stone, and it's a proposal to work with Marion County and Polk County on a cooperative program to match grant funds that are coming from the state of Oregon for business relief. Commissioners, did you have a time
My
to
only
read it?
comment is I really appreciate Abhishek doing this because The way it's structured right now, we'd have to stand up a whole brand new program, and the time periods we have just wouldn't work for standing up a new program. So I agree with Avishaw's advice that we, instead of, we just give her the approval to work with Marion Polk County and supporting a regional program.
I must confess that at first I only read the first paragraph, and it just said, all I saw was I do not recommend. So for me, it was, I had to actually read it through again. But I should clarify that Polk County has, it sounds like they've been asked if there's an interest in joining this regional approach, but it doesn't sound like at the time of writing this that they had also agreed yet. So, you have thoughts?
Yes, and that Abisha is saying that she says that she would recommend a regional proposal, and
And
part
she
of that.
just needs our support for regional proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have seen in the email, I think, on the mechanics, because we don't have an actual written proposal
Yeah.
that put together, and with the timing of things, I was going with if there was consensus, like I described in the email, if there's consensus from the board to proceed, that would give Abisha the green light, and it sounds like there is consensus to proceed.
Yeah.
And then bring back whatever is submitted next week, because I know Sunday's the deadline
Yeah.
for responding to it, that we can bring that back and put it on the agenda for next week for ratification.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So we can do that by consensus, right, Ken?
I believe
Just
so.
directing staff.
I'll look at Christian and.
Yeah, we can come back to some notes from the board.
Yeah, because right now there's, other than the email, there's not really something for the board
Yeah.
to take action
Look
on
at,
to approve. And I think just looking for guidance on applying for this regional approach, and then. we can
Yeah,
come
so you
back.
could tell Abisha to move forward.
I think we just, you probably want.
Thanks,
Oh,
Abisha.
hi, thanks Abisha if you're watching.
Thank you, Abisha.
Okay, great. Then we are, that concludes the item F, or F, which is other business. And thank you, commissioners, and thanks, Ken. We'll move on to item G, which is public hearings. And item G1 is a planning docket number G-01-18, which is the Yamhilis West Sider Trail remand with written testimony and evidence only. And this is continued from April 30th of 2020. So at this point, I'd like to reopen the hearing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up Todd Sadlow as the representative of the county first. And then I will ask for opposition testimony at that point. After that. Oh, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's appropriate at this time to ask for reconsideration of the motion that we made on the 30th and ask for this hearing to be set over to the 21st. So could I make that motion before we begin, or is that something we have to do once the hearing is underway?
I think I've opened the hearing, so I think we are underway. But I'd look to Christian for guidance on that. Yeah.
Is it,
Okay.
Christian, is it one of the commissioners who voted aye to ask for delay, or somebody that wasn't there for the meeting? Or can any of the commissioners,
Anyone who voted with the majority.
anybody that voted with the majority can ask to have it?
Anyone, this
Yeah.
is, we're not following that part of ordinance 900.
Right.
This quasi judicial land use proceeding has its own separate rules and regulations that we're following. So it's appropriate for the board at this point to discuss whether or not they're interested in making an additional change to the schedule and reconsidering the schedule that you set 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would make that motion. I'll go ahead and, if that's okay, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to reconsider our, to set the hearing over to the 21st.
This, the hearing that we just opened, right?
Correct.
And in order to do that, I'm glad Ken's here, because I think there would be a couple of other procedural elements to that motion that we want to make sure we're included. Setting it over to a date and time certain.
Correct.
I think that's, the main thing is setting over the date and time certain. And then if you would be carrying over providing the 5 days for response of the applicant as you have right now.
The representative, the applicant.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify. Okay, so there's a motion.
Motion be then to reopen on the 21st, essentially at the same point we are right now, to then hear testimony from a representative of the applicant and the representative of the opponents at that time.
Correct.
Okay. And then with the record also remain.
That's what I was just going to ask.
An additional 7 days. Up to the board.
Is it, what is 5 days?
How about,
But 5 days was meant to occur after
Okay.
we heard the testimony for the applicant's final word, and then you would receive that 2 days before the date and time certain set for deliberation, which would also be included in the motion today.
Correct. And so that date is the 21st.
and so there is a motion. I just wanted to get us procedurally back on track. So there's a motion and discussion.
Yeah, discussion, with all the fairness, reading all of the testimony that's been submitted in writing. I haven't even gotten it all. I mean, we just got a lot of it this morning, and I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet. So to me, I think it makes sense to set it over. What I don't want to happen is that we set it over for another set over. So I mean, if we set it over to the 21st or even the 28th, give them 2 weeks to get their traffic consultant in to look at ours and do their own and everything. I don't, because we'll want time to look at that also. So I don't have a problem with 21st or even the 28th.
And I'd just like to remind commissioners that there has been time for those things too. Just there's been time for traffic studies previous to this. The attorney, the representative for the opposition, Ms. Kellington, well, I apologize that she can't listen right now because she's doing a presentation. As soon as that remand came from Hvac, she had the opportunity to begin doing a traffic study. So I just want to acknowledge that there has been plenty of time. What I saw in the first 200 pages of testimony from Wendy Kellington that we received this morning, there were a lot of objection to the hearing and to process around the hearing. And we've been here and we've talked about this now many times, but I was concerned that I didn't see a lot, at least in the initial 208, that was about the substance of the remand. And I think that is concerning to me because it's my impression that we're doing things in accordance with the land use rules and proper procedure. That said, I am fine with having a continuance, I guess, picking up at the hearing at the same place at a further date. The one thing is that because we have invited both opposing council representative or opposing party representative and representative for the county / applicant. Personally, I want to hear from them today. And so that's the place where I feel like I understand there's tremendous pressure from opposition to delay and to delay and to delay, but they're also right here, right now. One other thing I want to note is that it sounds like a little bit of a misinterpretation from Wendy Kellington of my remarks the other day when I said, this must have been I'm trying to remember the meeting. It must have been last Thursday when we again talked about whether we were going to have a delay in the hearing or not. And I said that I had not heard back from her, and I was speaking with reference to, and I believe I said this to you, but it was probably not. I mean, I know the microphones aren't great. That I hadn't heard from her ever about whether that Friday proposal was going to work or whether she wanted to respond to that. So I just want to know that note, in case she watches later, that I at least have received everything. And I'm fairly certain that if I've received everything, you also have received everything as well.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that I don't believe there's anybody withholding information from us.
I'd also
Yes.
like to state that I think in, I don't know what part was Ms. Kellington's testimony she submitted this morning about my quote. I think that was misworded or misunderstood. My question to staff had strictly to do with the stay on the construction of the bridge and how, with whatever we did, how it dealt with that stay. And I think the way that she wrote it is not exactly what was meant or what was said. So, other than that.
I just wanted to make sure that Wendy, Councilor Kellington, knew that we had received everything. But Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And thank you, Commissioner Olson. I just wanted to say that this has been a long process, and I think it would be important for us to acknowledge that there is considerable interest in delaying this until the 21st. And I would just ask the board to think in terms of how many years we've been working on this and how many years we've been trying to address the issues that the opponents have had. And I don't think it's unreasonable in light of the objections and the concerns that they have, that we as a board take that into consideration and set it over at this point till the 21st.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, I have a question for what I think is opposition's legal counsel. Is that
I would like to talk to.
okay? Yes, absolutely. This is just a really specific question. Would it be okay if you came up to the? It's just brief. It's just I want to, and if you would mind stating your name.
Sarah Mitchell.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure. Okay, so my question for you, Counselor, is has the opposition and has your law firm been working on a traffic study? And will it be ready by the 21st or response?
We have been working on a traffic study that we submitted with the materials this morning.
I didn't get all the way through them. I'm so sorry.
That only responds to the applicant's own traffic study.
Okay.
And we know that was put together last minute. So we would still request that this hearing be set over to March 28th, preferably.
March?
I'm sorry,
That's
May, thank you. May 28th. Simply because, not just because Wendy wasn't available today to be here, but for the reason that we just haven't had adequate time to prepare. When the applicant has sat on this remand for nearly 6 months and they've had time to put together the traffic study, we had to scramble to get someone to respond during this whole COVID-19 shutdown to be able to get us on, just to respond to the points made in.
Okay, I think I have enough information. Thank
Okay.
you. I don't need,
I
it's
have,
starting to sound like a presentation of opposition testimony, so I just want to make sure.
I have a clarification. I think in one of Wendy's emails this morning, she talked about just hiring. So, you say you've been working on it, and she said in one of her emails this morning that they would just hired one. So between yesterday
Within
and
the last
tonight,
week, we had just been able to hire him.
that's not what her testimony said, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's just
Commissioner, I
clarification.
just want to make sure, do you have any further questions about the process and that timing of the hearing for Councilor Mitchell?
No, I don't, but I would like to ask the applicant's counsel one question when he
Okay,
gets a chance to speak.
Perfect.
Commissioner, did you get an answer to your
Thank you.
question, whether or not the study will be completed by the 21st?
I heard that the study was completed. That was what I heard. It's in the packet.
With the response to the applicant's
Right.
traffic study.
Yeah, the response to the applicant's traffic study.
Yeah.
Is in the packet. We have not performed our own independent.
Perfect. Yeah.
That's why I needed that clarification.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor and representative of the county, there's a question for you.
Sadlo, Yankton County Counsel's Office, appearing on behalf of the applicant county.
Thank you, Mr. Sadler. One question. The opposition's counsel has stated that, quote unquote, the county sat on this information for 6 months. Can you respond to the timing of the response for the hearing to occur now?
Thank you.
Well, I had 6 months. As you know, the decision came out October 15th, and I had hip surgery the next week. We have done everything we could to get everything together, but there was no rush at the time. And yet there are deadlines that we needed to meet, so I met those deadlines. The hearing was noticed in the paper and given to individual property owners and everybody who participated 21 days before the 30th. They knew this was coming up, that there's no way that they didn't anticipate this. And they knew that legal was asking me for a traffic study. So they knew that they needed to come up with some evidence related to traffic. So I think that this is just more delay just for the purpose of delay, when really, this is a matter that was left to us, to the two sets of attorneys, to address the remand, for me to try to come up with an answer to the questions that they raised and the things that they remanded, and for them to respond to that. But that's all this is. It's not the time to reopen the whole hearing again, to have everybody speak on the record once again about all the things that they think are wrong with this, when most of them have already been resolved by LUA, and we're really just left with a few strands of spaghetti left on the wall that we're trying to take care of here. So I'm hoping that you will not unreasonably delay this. If they want it to the 21st, as long as we end up with the same time frame after it, I'm not hugely opposed to that. But you've got to remember that they will likely, if they follow their past procedures, they will likely wait to the last minute to give us new evidence that I will not have an opportunity to respond to in a gambit to get more delays on this process. So that's just where this goes. And at some point, you just have to say enough is enough. We've heard everything we're going to hear, and let's make a decision on it. I was hoping that today both of us could talk to you, since I represent the applicant on 2 appeals of this case now, and Ms. Mitchell represents the opponents, organized opposition through 2 of these, and handle every bit of the legal matter related to those remands. So the people that know about this are here today, and I'm hoping that we can put this behind us. If you want to leave it open for another week for written testimony, I don't have a huge problem with that. And then if I could be respectfully given an additional 5 days for my final word, I would provide you with final draft findings at that time, because there are errors in the existing draft that I provided to you, and also hopefully to respond to any new evidence that comes in between now and whenever we finally close the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Sadler.
I have to, the applicant's attorney, I have to agree with the applicant's attorney that I say I don't mind sending it over to the 21st, but I think the opponent heard very clearly today that when they do their traffic study, we don't want to get that, but they've accused us of waiting the night before to get things. I don't want them to wait to give us things till the night before. I think we have to trust that, that they will do that, not give us things the night before and then ask for another I don't want either the applicant or the opponent to ask for another continuance upon that. So based on that, I'm not opposed to putting it over till the 21st, but I don't want anybody to submit a lot of things on the 20th, 9 o'clock at night on the 20th. So we have to sit here on the 21st and say, oh, we got new information we haven't had a chance to review. So, they said they could have, and I hope they would provide us that early enough. So
May I?
Sure.
I think we're good. Did anybody have further questions for Councilor Sadler?
not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
No,
I just wanted to make
thank
sure that
you.
we didn't just leave you kind of floating there. I'd like to go back to that what I've seen almost entirely in terms of written testimony that's been submitted is complaints about the process. I think that it's important to be aware of the process, but almost everything, for example, that the Oregon Farm Bureau said was biting words about the process of having this hearing now. I don't think personally that it's going to change anything. And I'm going to be careful because your words were used against you. I don't think that the response of the opposition to this process will change with us holding it over for one more week. We have counselor for opposition here with us right now. We have a document in front of us. This is fairly normal to receive information the day of the hearing. I just want to remind you of that we receive information all the time the day of a hearing. We have the luxury in this case of having another week to digest the information, the 208 pages plus a response to a traffic study from the opposition. I would love to hear right now, and I know that Councillor Sadlow said he was not terribly opposed to moving to next week, but as a commissioner, I'm ready to hear it now. So, but
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I agree with Councillor Sadlow and with Commissioner Olson in that there really would be no harm in us showing the goodwill and to be able to set this over for another week. That really materially nothing can be gained by doing this today. It shows, I think, a lack of willingness to cooperate. This way, that puts to bed any kind of thoughts that perhaps the county is or the applicant is in any way taking advantage of or not acknowledging a spirit of cooperation. So agreeing with Commissioner Olson and with Councillor Sadlow, I think that setting it over for another week with, again, the proviso that we're not getting information like we've gotten early late the night before and early the day of. We've gotten it from the applicant and the opposition. And frankly, especially on a day like today, when you're dealing with multiple issues.
There's some other things.
And there's other things going on.
We didn't even talk about them yet.
And the tyranny of that urgency, I think that we do well to, since Councillor Sadlow, we said, listen, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up, give the extra time, but let's not have any presumption that there would be another delay, and so that we can put this to bed.
So thank you. Did you have something?
Yeah,
You opened your mouth
and
and
talk about you brought up, Mr. Chair, is the process.
Yeah.
And I don't know what could be done with, but that's one thing about the process itself I don't like, is if we have something scheduled for a certain date, like for today, we have to do something if possible to make sure that all evidence is submitted like 72 hours prior to the day of the hearing and not right up to the minute of the hearing, or we'll keep going through this. Not just, but with any case, I expect we're going to have it come up again, not necessarily on this case, but another case. And I don't know if we can even do that legally, but letting people submit testimony right up to the last second.
Can we?
Yeah, I can.
If I can comment on that. You weren't scheduled to make a decision on this today. It was going to be a decision on this next Thursday. So, and it would have provided Todd Sadlow, the way the schedule is right now, to provide rebuttal up till Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And so it doesn't give you 3 days, but it did give you a couple days to look at that testimony. And I would estimate that Todd Sadlow's evidence, or excuse me, not evidence, but testimony and rebuttal would be significantly fewer pages than the opponents have provided.
And it sounded like Councillor Sadlow had one clarification he wanted to make.
It was just for the final word, that it's always limited to testimony only, not evidence.
Yes.
And I don't see a problem with limiting evidence being submitted 72 hours before. You can give a date for evidence unless Ken Friday says otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So one option that it sounds like that we have is we could, because there have been many opportunities to provide written testimony. It sounds like we would have the ability to say we are closed for written testimony because we have a lot to digest now, and then have just testimony in person from applicant and opposition on next Thursday.
Just a clarification from the opponent's counsel on that.
Yeah.
As far as, so you're suggesting that we limit.
We
written-
close written now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then would that preclude you from submitting information that we would likely need regarding the traffic study and other information that you say you don't have yet?
Actually, it would. Last night, the applicant submitted new evidence that we have a right to respond to, that you have a duty to keep the record open for 7 days to allow us to respond to that new evidence.
Totally disagree with that, commissioners, and I can explain if I need to.
I would like to hear from
I'd like to
Councilor
hear.
Sadlo then.
Want me to come up?
Please, yeah. We'll make it a little bit more formal this way, so we just don't have two attorneys standing up. It starts to make me feel nervous.
Commissioners, this is not the initial evidentiary hearing. And even if you said that it was the initial evidentiary hearing on remand, that happened on April 30th. We gave them 2 weeks to respond. And to say that one photo, which is all they can come up with, I had 3 exhibits, and one of them is an affidavit from their client, a declaration rather. The second isn't even evidence, it's quotations of federal law. It's not even evidence, it's law. And the third is a photograph of the boundary of Beulah Park and their client's field. To the extent they think that that's new evidence that they need to respond to, they were invited to come this morning and respond to it. I think you should ask them to respond to it then, and not say we need another week to respond to that new evidence and come up with what? To say that it's not true, that that's not a representation of the southern boundary line of Beulah Park and the Van Dyke's field? What is it? I mean, they've had the opportunity, they had the document yesterday afternoon. They know about it, obviously. When they came in here, they knew about it. So have them respond to it. That's the rebuttal that they're entitled to, not 7 days. There's no law that says they get 7 days for that.
Thank you for responding and
I'd
explaining
like
a little bit
to
further.
respond.
Councilor Mitchell, just before, I'm going to ask a question of our staff, just as part of process. Thank you. This probably for Christian, but maybe for Ken. We are still discussing the timeline of continuance or not to another day, but it sounds like we're also now receiving testimony. That in my, there's a comment about evidence and then a rebuttal to that evidence. Is that okay, or should we just go start our hearing?
Well, if I can respond, it sounds like you have a motion
Yeah.
about continuing this. And from what I understood, it was basically lifting this process and setting it, the whole process back 1 week. And I have language I can read that basically does that. And so by lifting this process and putting it back 1 week, it would make it so that you could provide written testimony until 10 a.m. Next Thursday. And then we would invite back the representatives from both sides, and they would be able to give their testimony. And then there would be a 5-day timeline for the applicant only to provide rebuttal. And then you would make the decision then on June 4th. It would be reopened at either staff recommendation or deliberation. So I'm ready to read that. If you want to hear from them today, I think that's up to the board. But if the motion passes, it makes more sense then to have it 1 week from today.
Yeah.
To me,
So,
it
yeah.
makes more
Yeah.
sense.
Okay. Thank you.
It may be helpful to clarify too, there seems to be some concern on the board about receiving either new testimony or new evidence at the last hour. You wanted to set an earlier deadline for either new evidence or testimony to allow you 24, 48 centimeters
Right.
to review everything. Is that not
I-
also?
I think it
I think
is,
that was my most recent proposal to the board, so I'm sorry.
no, it's fine. I think if you basically have everything 1 week sit over, you're still, or would be receiving Todd's final word on a Tuesday
Mhm.
at 5 o'clock. We'd be sending it on to you, and then you'd be opening this back up at deliberation and decision on Thursday at 10 a.m.
Right.
And the opponent's testimony and evidence would be the week before your June 4th hearing. So that you would have a week to see whatever the opponents have submitted.
I'm sorry, wasn't the proposal to close for, at next and then have rebuttal by the applicant on the 28th? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit. So what's the June 4th then?
I'm sorry, you know what? I read June 4th. I meant May 28th. Because you were talking about 2 weeks, I wrote down June 4th. My apologies. So I meant to write, or say June 28th.
May
May
20.
28th.
Well, I'd just like to note that there was a March 28th in Councilor Sadlow's documentation too. So that's why I'm sure Councilor Mitchell said March in her comments as well. Just giving you the benefit of the doubt.
So
Yeah.
would the board like Mr. Friday to read his proposed schedule? Are you ready for that, or is there more discussion?
No, I'm ready to hear what his actual proposal is.
And my current one that's still out there for you is that we're done with written testimony right now.
Well,
Besides,
Mary
I
made-
made a motion.
Oh, yes.
And we never acted on her.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. So we're still in discussion
Yours
of
could
that.
be
The record shall be open till 10 a.m. on May 21st for all parties to submit written testimony or evidence to the planning department at 525 Northeast 4th Street, McMinnville. The board shall reopen the hearing on this date at 10 a.m. in room 32 for a representative of the applicant to provide oral testimony, and a representative of the opponent to provide oral testimony, and the applicant to provide oral rebuttal to what was stated. The record shall then be open for the applicant only to submit final written argument with no new evidence until 5 p.m. on May 26th. At that point, the record shall be closed. The Board of Commissioners shall then reopen the hearing at 10 a.m. on May 28th, 2020 in room 32 of the Yamhill County Courthouse at the point of staff recommendation.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to amend my motion to include Mr. Friday's provisions.
That's the
She's got a
motion.
motion.
Yeah, she's got the motion. We're still in discussion at this point. And I just
I have
want
no further discussion.
to, okay,
No
okay,
further discussion.
okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Right, like the records show that we have approved the motion as stated by Ken Friday.
And I'll get this to you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Deadline is 10 a.m. next Thursday. Testimony evidence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sadler. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Friday.
And I will close,
Recess.
I will recess this hearing until May 21st at close to 10 a.m. All right, we're back in the formal session. And the next item is announcements. Would you like to have, do you have any announcements?
Mr. Chair, I'll
She's
defer
got
to
a
you
page
for
full of
the
announcements.
announcement.
Okay, and well, I guess then if you're willing, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, I'd like to announce that, and I think it's now official of the governor's actions too, that we have been approved to move into phase 1 of economic reopening.
Yeah.
And
I just want to say that
Yeah.
our Health and Human Services Director, Lindsay Manfred, and her team, really, they have been working so arduously on getting this information. And I think that speaks to why this application was one of the reasons why it was approved.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, and our county council, Mr. Bonish, and our administrator, and I know Carolina and Carrie, everybody's been working really hard to make sure that this thing happened. So I just want to say, really just speaks so highly of this county.
Yeah, I think it's true. For one of our business owners here in McMinnville, I went over the plan that we submitted to the governor with him, and he was the first one to come in. He says, my God, I didn't know it was this complicated. And I said, oh yeah, it's just complicated. He says, well, no wonder it took so long. And everybody says, yeah, but we did it right.
Yeah.
And I think that I agree with you. Lindsay and her staff and Ken and Chris Jenner and everything just did a bang up job. And to get approved in 48 hours is kind of.
And I know that there's lots to be critical about it, but I also just want to thank the governor's staff. I know at least a few of them were working very, very long hours and very long nights, because I received emails at 10 in the evening and then again at 5 in the morning. And so I just want to publicly acknowledge a thanks to the governor's office for working so quickly on it.
Especially,
I didn't think that we would be at this stage right now.
no, especially when some of the counties have been refused or turned for further review. And I find it amazing that our 3 major metropolitan counties haven't even filed the plan yet. So.
Right.
And 2 of the counties in our region were not able to have their approval at this point. So I know that they're disappointed, and we will do whatever we can to help them with their plan, because I know that Marion and Polk really do want to get back up and open.
And our resources at the region level are with them. So
Yes.
yeah, I
that's
think
right.
that's really important to acknowledge too.
Well, I think, and the only announcements I have is for part-time, I was on with ODOT and OTC, I was on a YouTube this morning watching the YouTube, and about halfway through it, half of the state's network went down. So much for the YouTube. You could call and listen, but you couldn't watch it. And then we have a YCOM budget meeting at 1 o'clock today. And then this afternoon, we have our ERT video this afternoon. So
Right. And
it's
I
been
think,
a busy day.
speaking of that, I think it'll be, I feel like it's very much one of my responsibilities right now to make sure that people have, for their businesses, have all that guidance. So I also understood that the gym's final guidance should be out this afternoon. So that's one that people have asked me about. And I say, I don't think we can, I don't think you should follow the draft guidance that they saw earlier, because things have changed, right, with others and with other final guidance.
Yeah, I tell them just go to go to our website, or why don't you go to our website and read the governor's, or read our plan, and
Yeah.
at the bottom, there's links to all the guidance,
Right.
Current links.
because that's current, whatever it is.
I just want to offer that I was on a call with Fair Borders, the DHS director, and he's talking about the significant cuts that the governor has asked for 17% across the board to all departments. So really right now, trying to figure out what programs will be impacted. So that's a discussion, and that's a concern, because we've gotten so far, and we don't know whether or not any of the programs that we've been standing up will be affected. Also, that Northwest Seniors will also come under those guidelines, and they will have a significant.
If you shut us for a minute, I have to make a little one.
Okay, just real quick, that DHS and
Yes.
they're working on that, and Northwest Seniors, and also been working with George Hvac, with Dr. Baker, as far as the reopening plan for the colleges in our area, and they're forming a collaboration with Linfield and George Hvac. So that's been ongoing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great. Thank you. I think the only announcement was the big one. So for me,
That's a big one.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been great knowing with the work that's been going on that we all have different skills and strengths. So
Thank you.
pleasure working with you on it.
Thank you so much.
If there's no other announcements from staff, I will close this meeting of the Hvac County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you. No?
This meeting starts